So young people with autism, they have such a wide range of needs, and in response to that, we have to be really creative about how we support those and what is necessary for them to be able to achieve and have, an enjoyable life. Anxiety is such a massive part of their day-to-day life, and supporting them with that by helping them feel in control of what's happening. And we can do that in so many ways. Choice can be our friend, but it can also be really overwhelming. So I tend to suggest things like limited choice can be helpful for young people, particularly if they're new in placement and when you're beginning to learn each other and what they like. Things like having a first and then board. So first you get dressed, then you have breakfast, or whatever the routine is in your house. Having a visual itinerary can be really useful. So, just a breakdown of, at 7:30 you wake up, at 8 o'clock you have breakfast, at 8:30 you wash your face, brush your teeth, at 8:45 we go to school, things like that. Young people with autism can be very visually minded, and that can support their ability to understand how the day is going to go. Transitions into school, that can be really difficult. Schools can be incredibly difficult for young people. If you are experiencing difficulty with relationships, difficulty with communication, difficulty with interaction, going into a class with 20 people where you may have fluorescent strip lighting and everyone's lunch smells different and everyone's doing something different, everyone's asking you things, everyone's communication is different, that can really flood a young person with anxiety. So we really want to support them to be as regulated as possible when they're going into those environments. So, if they struggle transitioning into school, do they need to go in earlier when it's not as busy? Do they need to start the morning with sensory circuits to bring them back into that window of tolerance and to make it feel safer for them to go in there? Any mealtimes can be a really difficult time for young people. Any kind of foods can produce, this real sensory onslaught. You might find that if there's other young people in your house who enjoy a full English breakfast, you may find that some young people with autism really struggle to be around those smells. So I think flexibility within us as, the people that are caring for these young people is really essential. Do we have a different space that these young people can go and eat in? Can they have breakfast at a different time to someone who's eating something that they don't like? You may find young people have very certain ideas about food and how that needs to be presented. There's sort of a thing called like the beige food diet. So you may see young people like tortillas and crisps and chips and chicken nuggets and quite beige, bland food. You may find that young people absolutely cannot tolerate their food touching. It may feel like it's being contaminated. They may not want the textures to meet each other. You can get some really good plates where they're either separated into three, so you can kind of have your chips in one side, your sloppy foods, your gravies in the other, vegetables on another side. And for younger children, you can also have plates where there's kind of like 12 little sections in them, and you can, work with the young people to find out what they like. So when we're looking after young people who have autism, there may be times where we have visitors to the house, and that may provoke an element of concern or worry for them. And in situations like that, there is a range of things that we can do. So one of the things can be a social story. So using visuals to break down into a really simple way what that young person can expect. So it may be a picture of your social worker, a picture of the clock, and a picture of how long it's going to be. So it may be my supervising social worker is going to be here for 2 hours and then leave. And that gives them the ability to predict and feel in control of the environment around them. If you have a welcome booklet for your young person, having that as a social story, pictures of, aunties, nannies, family members who are likely to come and visit you, that can be really useful. And I think one of the important things is actually giving these young people a safe place to be, a space where they can go to, where if they're not feeling comfortable, they can go and they won't be disturbed. And that's the place where they can feel regulated and feel in control of that situation. And that may be different depending on the age and the developmental stages of young people. It may be that they're happy to play in a conservatory. It may be that you have a safe tent somewhere where they've got, dolls or cars or their favourite toys. But information helps these young people feel in control of their environment and helps them to understand what to expect. Young people who have autism and who are looked after, they are likely to have autism, but they're also likely to have anxiety, they're likely to have trauma, they're likely to feel very unsafe in an adult's ability to look after them and keep them safe. They like routine, they like consistency, but there's also this recognition that as much as we're going to try and keep an environment predictable for them, sometimes things happen that are outside of our control. And we want to really work on that young person to feel as safe as possible and to be able to recognise how things are going to go, but also to have some ability to tolerate those changes and those uncertainties that we can't control. In situations like that, giving choice within what we can offer. So, for example, we may have promised them that, on Friday, we're going to take them to McDonald's, and they're really looking forward to that, and the car's broken down. That can be really difficult for young people. In a situation like that, I may say to one of my young people, I'm really sorry, I can either do McDonald's tomorrow for you, or we can do pizza tonight. What would you like? And give that restricted choice. I also think quite often, even for young people in care generally, but particularly for people with autism who may be experiencing a high level of anxiety, the word no can be a real trigger point. It can be a real flashpoint. Sometimes once we've said no, whatever we communicate after is lost because that young person has just disconnected from us. And in situations like that, I try to use yes when. So my young person, my eldest, he may sit there and say, more Bakewell tarts. And this might be at 6 o'clock in the morning. So I'll say, yes, Fletcher, after tea, you may have Bakewell tart. And knowing when he can get it. So we've been able to communicate, we can't give it to them straight away, but they've received that in a way where they know when they are getting it, they know when they can expect this, and that can bring that anxiety level down and make it more manageable. So the young people that we look after, they're likely to have some sort of involvement, relationship or contact with their family or people who are significant and special to them. Things like counting down on calendars so that they can see how long it's due to be. But there's also, sometimes for a variety of reasons, our families may not be able to attend contact, and it might be short notice, and that may lead to an element of disappointment. So there are other young people for whom actually giving them this information too early isn't useful for them. And in situations like that, you can work with your social worker, you can work with your children's social worker to try and be creative with what's going to work best for your young people. If the contact is being supervised, for example, it may be a case of waiting until the parents have arrived and then getting someone to notify you. And your young person may deal better with actually not having too much notice because it stops that sort of arch of anxiety getting too high. I think the thing that's really important when you're dealing with all of our young people, particularly if you've got young people with autism and loss and trauma, is that we have to be creative, we have to be flexible in terms of how can we best meet these needs? How can we give these young people enough control and enough sense of safety and security?